Every week I come to you and I ask you to go to the website, ask a question, give me an idea for a topic you'd like me to cover. Well, someone actually asked me to cover the preamble to the Constitution. So that's what we're going to do. So Jessie, this one's for you next on the Constitution Study.
There's one thing you have to know wherever you make your stand. Came from a long through line of everyday Americans.
Hello there, everyday Americans. Paul Engel here once again with the Constitution Study, where we read and study the Constitution and teach the rising generation to be free. It's important that we do this to understand our rights, to know when they're violated, and to be able to defend and protect them. You can help by heading over to the website, constitutionstudy.com. Find out the work that we're doing. Help educate yourself. Most importantly, help educate others. Share this knowledge. Share this information. Share these resources so that others can learn what they didn't learn about their Constitution, so they can understand their role, their responsibility as American citizens. I want to thank those that help me share this information, that help me get this content out, that help me make better content as we go along. I've met some really interesting people in the last couple weeks. Beverly, you know who you are. You've been helping me greatly with ideas that hopefully we'll see soon in these episodes. Most of all, I want to encourage you, as I said, to share. This is not a one-man organization. It's not a one-man band. This is all of Americans getting together to better understand the Constitution and to create a better country for our children and our grandchildren to live in. So please be part of the solution and not simply part of the problem. Head over to the website, follow me on Facebook, on YouTube, put out those questions, put out those requests. Who knows, I may do yours soon too. So with that, let's head into the preamble. Now, if we're going to understand the preamble and the Constitution as a whole, we need to put it into a little bit of context. See, back in June of 1776, Richard Henry Lee submitted a resolution that we dissolve our relationship with Great Britain, that we become free states. Now, part of that resolution included writing a document explaining why we're doing this, and that became known as the Declaration of Independence. It was the Lee resolution was approved on July 2nd. The language of the declaration on July 4th. It was sent to the states, who approved it, and it was actually signed on August 2nd. Now, under the Lee resolution, the states got together under what's called the Articles of Confederation. Now, they fought the war under these articles, but shortly thereafter, they had realized through the war and into the post-war era that they weren't working. There was a problem. So they had a Second Continental Congress. They sent representatives to Philadelphia to fix the Articles of Confederation. They pretty much decided that that wasn't going to work. They really needed to start from scratch. They got approval from their states. Voila, they created a constitution. Now, the preamble is not legally binding, right? You're not going to be arrested or charged with violating the preamble, although there's certainly a lot of congressmen and senators who think it is, but it's not really there. But what it does do is describe what this document is, describe why our founding fathers did this. So let's start with those first three words, the most famous words, the one in big, bold writing. Words so famous that they're everywhere. In fact, they've even made it to an episode of the original Star Trek series. We the people. Actually, it's we the people of the United States. See, it's we the people of the United States who formed this union, who put together these states, who declared independence. See, we created states, and those states elected representatives, but ultimately it's we the people who formed the United States of America. That also means it's we the people that are responsible for the United States of America. Sadly, that means we're responsible for the pretty sorry condition that our governments are in. Now, while that's bad news, it's also the good news, because if we're responsible, then we can fix it. But it's important to recognize we have an inverted understanding of the power structure in America. See, the federal government is not the top of the food chain. They're actually the bottom of the food chain. It is we, the people, that formed the states. It is we, the people, that formed what we now call the federal government. It is we, the people, that form this country. And ultimately, it's we the people who are in charge. The fact that we've kind of let things go, well, that's our fault too. The buck stops here. But it's important that we recognize that it is we the people who form this country. And it's we the people that keep this country going. And when we the people figure out that we have the power and we are in charge, then this nation will go back to what it was founded as, a union of free and independent states. Which is the next part of the sentence. See, we the people of the United States had a purpose in order to form a more perfect union. As I said, we started together under the Articles of Confederation, and one of the big problems with the Articles is while they set a lot of requirements on the new states, they really had no enforcement mechanism. States would agree to pay taxes and then never pay them. One of the reasons that we had a Valley Forge, or that Washington fought so often to try and get funding, was because the taxes the states promised to deliver to pay for the military never appeared. No, this union wasn't perfect. This union had problems. So the reason we have a constitution is to form a better union, a more perfect union. Again, a union of free and independent states. Now, this union has a goal. There's a reason why we formed this union. Why? Well, to establish justice. Notice, not social justice, not economic justice, not racial justice, just justice, fairness, protection of individual rights. That's why this union was formed. That's why we have a constitution. That's why we have the separation of powers both within the federal government and between the federal government and the states, to make sure there was tension so that there would be bodies that would be fighting to protect the justice of the citizens of this nation. It was also formed to ensure domestic tranquility. Take a look at Europe. Multiple states in one small area often will fight over resources, insults, pretty much anything people fight over. We didn't want that here when we created this new concept of 13 states in one close proximity. See, we wanted to make sure that domestically we weren't infighting. So part of the purpose of the Constitution is to recognize the relationship between the states and to take areas that would tend to be conducive to conflict, shall we say, and move them into the one central government, what we now call the federal government. The union's also there to provide for a common defense. Together we stand, individually we fall apart. That was the idea. See, if we stayed 13 independent states, Great Britain, and in fact any significantly militarized nation, could easily pick us off one by one. No, by providing for a common defense, the 13 states, now 50 states, could band together and defend themselves. And over history, we've seen that we've not only defended ourselves, we've been able to defend others. We have sent men and women overseas to fight and die in multiple world wars and other skirmishes in order to defend others. That's why we are formed. Yes, common defense has become not just common defense of the states, but the ideas of human rights as a whole. Promote the general welfare is often used as a reason why pretty much Congress can do whatever it wants, but notice it doesn't say provide the general welfare, but promote it. There are items in the Constitution like copyrights and patents that are there to promote the opportunity, but to do so generally. See, it's interesting that general welfare is not welfare checks for everybody. It's the idea that of the now 50 states, we want an environment where they can fare well, where opportunities are equal, where states aren't singled out either for advantages or for disadvantages. In other words, what the federal government was to do was to provide the general, even-handed application of the powers delegated to it in the Constitution. But this is the one that gets me the most. See, the purpose of the Constitution, the purpose of this union, the purpose of what we created was to secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity. See, we think of liberty and freedom and often just flip terms. We roll off our tongue freedom of speech and freedom of the press and even freedom of religion, but do we ever stop and think, what are these blessings of liberty? Now, I have a whole other discussion on rights, and I go into a lot of details of liberties, but the reason we have a government is to secure the blessings of liberty both to ourselves and to our posterity. That means when we do things that maybe benefit us but harm our children, our grandchildren, we're not doing our job. When we let a government that works in our name borrow money for today and expecting others to pay for it in the future, we're not securing the blessings of liberty to our posterity. One of the reasons why I spend so much time on the Constitution study is to protect the blessings of liberty for myself and my daughter, and eventually my grandchildren. See, as John Jay said it, we are to study the Constitution, to read and study it, so that we will recognize our rights, but also to teach the rising generation to be free. If we don't teach the next generation not only the blessings of liberty, but the responsibilities of them, those responsibilities and blessings won't last long. Now, based on all this, our founding fathers said they do ordain and establish this Constitution for the United States of America. Now, we use the word Constitution a lot, but what we're really talking about is a compact, a contract between sovereign entities. It's a contract between the states. It's a contract created so that the states can work together, can live together, can benefit from each other without losing their individuality. It's a contract that says they will delegate some of their powers as free and independent states to a central government. But they will also retain the power to control said central government, to protect their citizens from an abuse by that central government. In other words, we'll create a nation, a country called the United States of America, where we balance the liberties of the individual and the needs of the many, the powers of the states and the powers delegated to the federal government. Now, we've lost that balance. We've been living out of balance for decades. So sadly, when people read these words, very often they're just words. To me, this is beauty. This is poetry. This is what this nation was founded for. This is what gets me up in the morning and that allows me to go to bed at night knowing that I'm working to provide what the Constitution was built for. To make this union more perfect, to establish justice, to ensure domestic tranquility, to provide for the common defense, and to promote that general welfare, and to secure the blessings of liberty, not just to me, not just to my family, not just to my posterity, but to yours as well. Because if I can't protect my rights, how can I protect your rights? And if I don't protect your rights, who will be there to protect mine? So while this episode has been about the preamble to the Constitution, I want to close with the ending sentence of the Declaration of Independence. You see, the same reason we declared independence from Great Britain is the reason we should be fighting to maintain our rights, to educate ourselves, to know what our rights are, what the roles of the different governments are, what the roles of the different portions of government are, and to keep them in check. You see, this nation is running out of control because we, the people, have let go of the helm. We've let the tiller free and allowed the ship to go wherever it wants. If we want to change that, then we have to do something. Quote, "And for the support of this declaration, with a firm reliance on the protection of divine providence, we mutually pledge to each other our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honor." So here's my challenge to you. To support the idea of freedom and liberty, of free and independent states, of a more perfect union, justice, domestic tranquility, common defense, general welfare, in support of the blessings of liberty. I believe in our reliance on the protection of divine providence. Will we pledge to each other our lives? Will we get up off our backsides, get our noses out of the social media, and actually start looking at what has happened to this nation? Looking at the Constitution, the supreme law of the land, and start holding those who claim to represent us, those who act in our name, accountable for their actions? Will we let them know that they work for us, not the other way around? Will we pledge our fortunes? This takes time, this takes effort, this takes money. I'm not just talking about the work I'm doing. What about the work you're doing? Will you take the time? Maybe you have to take time from work to get yourself educated, to share this message with others, to go out to events and to conferences. Will you invest what is necessary for the blessings of liberty for yourselves and your posterity? Will you pledge your sacred honor? Will you pledge to put aside party and benefit and financial gain? Say, do what is right. Do what is necessary. Not just for you, not just for your children and your grandchildren, but for all the children and all the grandchildren that will inherit a nation that right now is less free than the one we inherited from our parents. Will we pledge our sacred honor to restore the blessings of liberty to ourselves and to our posterity and to the posterity of this nation? Because if we won't, I believe one day our children will curse us for what we let slip through our fingers, the inheritance that we denied them by spending it ourselves. I believe those blessings of liberty will become curses of servitude that our children will hurl at us because we wouldn't do the job. So what do you think? That's the preamble. The description of why we have this contract between these states. This contract that has been so maligned and so misused. We've been so miseducated about it, it drives me nuts. But you can help. Join us at the Constitution Study. Head on over to the website. Sign up for the mailing list. Find out what we're doing, find out what's going on. Maybe check out some of these new videos. Most of all, take the time, read it, and study it for yourself. And hopefully you can join us here again the next time on the Constitution Study.